Hi Nigerians, hello and happy independence in arrears. Today with me in the studio we have someone that is representing a body that will play a very significant role come the 2023 general elections. We all know that the 2023 general elections seems like one that's going to be mind-blowing and one of a kind because of the energy that is being seen now, especially the energy from the youth. So today we have with me the National Chairman and Commissioner, Voter Education and Information of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Dr. Festus Okoye. Hi. How are you doing, Doctor?
I'm good.
How do you want me to address you?
Anyone you want.
Dr.
Festus Okoye, just.
Festus Okoye, all right. Okay, so today I want to discuss some issues that have already been making the media that needs to be clarified, and issues that Nigerians, I believe Nigerians out there need answers to. They need more assurance as the 2023 election will come, because it's not just an election of, it's not just the National Assembly, it's not just the gubernatorial, this is the presidential election. This is what will judge what Nigeria will be like for the next 4 or maybe 8 years. So first I would like to ask, how prepared is INEC for the 2023 election?
The commission is prepared. Immediately after any election, we start preparing for the next election. So we started preparing for the 2023 general election at the end of the 2019 general election. And in between this particular election, we've had what we call off-cycle or off-season elections. We've had elections in Kogi, we've had elections in Edo, we had elections in Anambra, in Ekiti, and in Osun. And in all these elections, we learn valuable lessons. And with every election, we keep on improving. So for this particular election, we've gone very, very far in terms of our preparations. We started preparing a long time ago. In terms of the non-sensitive materials, we have acquired almost all the non-sensitive materials required for the conduct of this election. In terms of the technological devices we want to use, we are still acquiring them. And also in terms of the sensitive materials, they are already being designed. So I think that we are not going to have any major challenge in relation to the conduct of the 2023 general election.
Okay, I like your optimistic spirit, sir. So, okay, let me start from this. You are the Commissioner, Chairman, Voter Education and Information. How is the electoral body, INEC, planning to reach? How are they planning to sensitize people, citizens, especially the ones at the grassroots, people that are not literate, people that do not know how to read and write, people that do not know how to spell, people that are in villages, in communities that nobody really goes to? How is the Commission planning to overcome that challenge?
Well, incidentally, some of the people in rural communities, some of the people in these remote communities are politically enlightened, and they have a lot of electoral education. Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission has offices in the 704 local government areas of Nigeria. And in all these local governments, we have paid staff. And they interface and liaise with the various traditional rulers, religious leaders, civil society groups and organizations, women's groups and so on, at the base level, at the local government level. And they go from community to community, sensitizing people in relation to our processes and our procedures. And so we are going to continue to do that. We're also utilizing the radio, the television, and other means of mass communication to reach some of them. So many of the people in the rural areas have radio, and also they go to the church, they go to the mosque, they attend to their traditional rulers and so on. And so in terms of getting electoral education across to them, I think we are doing well. But I think that we underestimate the capacity and resolve the people at the rural areas in terms of their knowledge of elections and the electoral process.
Okay, I like where you're coming from. You said you have offices in 774 local government areas in the country. Let's talk about the north. Yeah, I think there's this barrier, this communication barrier. How are you planning to break that barrier? Because most of them are Muslims and they are always listening. Okay, you mentioned communication with religious leaders. How are you ensuring that these religious leaders are communicating with this part of the people in Nigeria?
Well, we have what we call stakeholder engagements. The moment elections are approaching, we engage the traditional rulers, we engage the community leaders, we engage women's groups, we engage religious leaders, and we engage all the critical stakeholders, especially at the rural, at the level of the rural areas. And we try to get very sensitive information across to them. We print posters in English, we print posters in the local languages. We also translate all our IEC materials into the various local languages so that it can reach the base level, it can reach the ordinary people. We have IEC materials in English, in Hausa, in Yoruba, in Igbo, and also the other local languages in the various communities. So we, in terms of making electoral education available to them, I don't think we have challenges, and we are going to continue to do our best to make sure that, one, they understand what we do, and two, that they understand the processes and procedures. But the political parties also have a very huge role to play in terms of making sure that the voters understand the manifesto or the ideological disposition of the various parties, understand their logo, and also understand their other paraphernalia. Civil society groups and organizations also have a huge role to play in relation to that. And so everybody is involved and nobody will be left behind.
Good. Well, we take your word for that. So I'm very sure our viewers would like to know, because one of the burning issues in the country at the moment is insecurity. Now we have heard of hoodlums, bandits, gunmen attacking INEC offices. We've also experienced violence in previous electoral periods in the past, campaigns during the election. How is INEC prepared for this? How are you guys going to collaborate effectively with security agencies to do this? Because on the other hand, definitely there are external factors. On the other hand, security agencies, we've been hearing about the poor welfare, some of them leaving. How are you going to ensure that there is enough security for Nigerians during the 2023 election?
The Commission is concerned about the security challenges in different parts of the country. The color and the context and the complexion of security challenges in different parts of the country differs. But the issue is that there are security challenges. Now, we have what we call the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, both at the national level, at the state level, and at the local government level. At the national level, the chairman of the commission, Professor Mahmood, is the chairman of the Interagency Consultative Committee, and the National Security Advisor is the co-chair. And then we have all the security agencies involved. At the state level, the Resident Electoral Commissioner chairs it, and then the Commissioner of Police in the state is the co-chair. And then it cascades to the local government level. So we've been collaborating, we've been sharing information on the security challenges and security issues in different parts of the country. We have been assured that the security agencies have the capacity to degrade as much as possible some of the security challenges we have. But on our own part, we're also mapping out the security issues in different parts of the country. And then we feed the security agencies with what we know and what we are hearing. In terms of our offices, we have also fortified our offices and removed sensitive materials from our various offices. We are doing what we call both minor and major renovation of the various offices, preparing them for the elections. So I think that despite the security challenges in the country, we are going to have a very good election.
Okay. So with these attacks that have been carried out, electoral materials have been destroyed, the financial implication of these attacks, how is INEC handling that? Hope by 2023, Nigerians are not going to hear, oh, there were not enough materials, there were not enough papers, not enough this and that, and things that will give a smooth election.
We have audited our local government offices and our zonal stores to establish the quantum of materials we have, establish the reusable materials we have, and then we have also placed orders for replacements for those that have been damaged or lost, in terms of cubicles, in terms of ballot boxes, and also in terms of other non-sensitive materials. So at the when the election comes, we are not going to have any challenges, and we are not going to complain. We are getting ready for this election, and we are confident at our processes, and we are confident at our procedures.
We've talked about insecurity in the north. So now, still on insecurity, communities in the north that have been taken over by Boko Haram, how are you planning to ensure that these people are able to exercise their political rights?
The Electoral Act 2022 has a provision that makes it mandatory for the Independent National Electoral Commission to factor in internally displaced persons into the electoral process. And we also have a policy on internally displaced persons. We document them. Those who have lost their PVCs, we make sure that we reprint their PVCs for them. Those who are not registered, we make sure that they are registered. So on election day, we recreate their registration areas or wards, and also recreate their polling units at the base or at the level of their camps. So on election day, definitely they will vote. But the challenge is that there are some internally displaced persons that are in the houses of friends, in the houses of relatives, and so on. Those people, if we are unable to document them, the implication is that they cannot vote. Then internally displaced persons who have left their states to other states, the implication is that they cannot vote, because the law is that you can only vote in the registration where you registered, and in the polling unit where you registered, and in the state where you registered. So if you do move from one state to the other, the implication is that you cannot vote on election day. But if you remain at the level of the state, we're able to recreate the registration area and the polling unit, and you'll be in a position to vote.
Okay, so still on the internally displaced person, when the voter registration, the CVR, continuous voter registration, was ongoing, we had a whole lot of people complaining about the stress, the
Yes.
the stress that had to go through, the shortage of staff and machines for them to do their registration. So how will that challenge be overcome in the election? Not for people who are able to stand. These were people who are able to stand in the sun. They were complaining. Now, these are internally displaced persons. How are you going to handle their own situation if there is not enough staff to make things fast and easy for them?
Well, let us take this whole issue and this whole saga about the continuous voters registration exercise.
Okay.
This continuous voters registration exercise started on the 28th day of June 2021, and we scheduled it to go on for a period of 1 year to the 30th day of June 2022. Now, for the 2019 general election, we deployed a total of 1,446 machines for purposes of biometric capture. But we projected that we may have more people coming out to come and register this time around. And so we deployed a total of 2,672 INEC voter enrollment devices. Now, over this 1 year period, sometimes a registration center will record just 2 or 3 persons coming to register. It was only towards the deadline, towards the end of the registration process, that we had this particular surge. And we responded to the surge creatively and dynamically and robustly by deploying additional voting machines to come and go and register people. Now, part of the challenge we had was the part of the challenge of misinformation and disinformation. Now, the CVR was not meant for every Nigerian. The CVR was only meant for those who have never registered in their lives, and also those who have turned 18 from the last registration exercise. Those are the only people that we are supposed to register. This is because those who are previously registered are already in our docket, and we had over 84 million Nigerians who already registered. But what we found out was that somebody who is living in Kaduna State, somebody who registered and voted previously in Kaduna State and has moved to Lagos, rather than go to retrieve his PVC from Kaduna, goes to a registration center to register afresh. The challenge we had was that somebody who has lost his PVC, rather than go to a registration center and tell the registration officers, I've lost my PVC, I need to have a new one. And then we schedule the person for a new PVC. The person will say, oh, I've never registered before. The person will register fresh. And that led to the multiple and double registrations we had. If you recall, when we cleaned up the data between the 28th day of June 2021 and 14th day of January 2022, we discovered that 44.6% of all the registrants were double or multiple registrants. and we had to remove them they remove their new registrations from the docket. So that was what increased the challenge we had. But I think that then we now decided to give an additional 1 month from the first day of July to the 31st day of July. The moment we announced that addition, people went home and then returned a week to the deadline. I think that we must find ways and means of doing things at the right time and not always waiting till the last moment before carrying out our civic responsibilities. It does not tell well of us as a people and as a nation. I believe that a period of 1 year and a month is sufficient for anybody who wants to register as a voter to register.
Okay, all right, that was good. Talking of the double registration, let's move on to the bimodal voter registration system. Now, let's also go back to the double registration. How effective is BVAS going to be if the recent system could not detect double registrations? How effective is BVAS now going to be? Now, if there's a problem or issue of fluctuation or like the double registration that we experienced earlier, what's the plan B?
There's no plan B.
There's no plan
B. Because the BVAS is a very robust machine. Now, what we do, which many people really do not realize, is that prior to this period, the name, the address, and the biometrics of each registered voter was resident in the permanent voters card. With the BVAS, the name, the address, and the biometrics of the voter is now resident in the BVAS. So the only information you have in the BVAS relates to only those who are registered in a particular polling unit. And we are going to have over 176,000 polling units. So the information in the BVAS in the polling unit located in Metama is different from the one that will also be in another polling unit located in the same Metama. So it is difficult for you to even swap the BVAS. That is one. Secondly, the BVAS operates offline. The information that is in the BVAS is already preloaded. The data of the registered voters is already preloaded in the BVAS before it is deployed. But the truth of the matter is that the BVAS, you cannot operate the BVAS until the time the BVAS has been configured to start operations comes. And so if you carry a BVAS let's say 7 a.m. in the morning, it will not operate because the BVAS has been configured to start operating at 8:30 in the morning. So that is one. The only time you need the BVAS to work online, so to say, is when you want to use the BVAS for the purposes of transmitting polling unit level result in terms of from EC8A, which is the polling unit level result. Say that it is then that you need network. So if there's no network at that particular polling unit, the BVAS stores the information, and then the moment it gets network, it uploads the information. And there is no registration area in this country where you don't have network. And what we have done is to map out the service providers that are strong in different parts of the state and in different parts of the local governments. And so we are not going to have any challenge with the BVAS.
No challenge.
We are not going to have. Now we are not only bringing in 176,000 BVAS. We are going to bring in over 200,000 BVAS. So the implication is that we have 8,809 registration areas. We are also going to deploy what we call redundancies to each of those registration areas, so that the moment there's any technical challenge with the BVAS, we will be in a position to intervene decisively. And we have also trained our registration area technical assistants who can also intervene decisively. But the law is that if they are unable to intervene, or if they intervene and they are unable to rectify the fault, the moment it is 2:30 at the close of polls, the implication is that the election in that particular polling unit will take place the following day.
Okay. All right. So I think you've mentioned a thing about registers, people that have registered. You've mentioned about your staff. Now, I want you to clarify an issue. Has the country started diaspora voting? Because a few weeks back or days back, some pictures surfaced the internet and we all saw that there were faces of people and names that are not of the Nigerian heritage.
Okay.
How trustworthy are the INEC staff that will be handling elections? How trustworthy is members of the body INEC towards this election?
Well, let me make a separation. The persons who are carrying out the continuous voters registration exercise and those who are going to serve the commission during elections. We have two categories of persons. On election day, for instance, you are not likely to see any paid INEC staff at the level of the polling unit. Most of our presiding officers are youth corps members, young men and women serving their country. They serve as presiding officers. If we have sufficient, they also serve as assistant presiding officers 1. Now, where we don't have sufficient corps members, we now get students of federal tertiary institutions who are in their penultimate year to serve as assistant presiding officer 1, 2, and 3. These are the ones you see at the level of the polling unit. The first
and these selected people are very, very objective. They are not going to come and be like, oh, I'm siding this party. Maybe I should just do something for this party.
Well, we believe that most of our young men and women who are serving, doing their national youth service, are still very patriotic, they are still very nationalistic, and are not likely going to compromise with the electoral process. But for the 2023 general election, we are going to deploy over 1,400,000 ad hoc staff. And you cannot, in all honesty, vouch for 1,500,000 ad hoc staff. But we train them, and we train them well. And we also point out to them the fact that the Electoral Act 2022 contains very stiff provisions relating to electoral offenders. And those provisions are stiffer, if I may use the word, when it relates to ad hoc staff of the commission who have been entrusted with a very critical and a sensitive responsibility. We believe that they are going to do well, and they have been doing well in the past. In the few cases we have recorded where they fell under some pressure. Sometimes we tell them, when you are under tremendous pressure, when their violence has been deployed to a polling unit, just obey and then make your necessary report, and then we will take it from there.
All right.
Now, in terms of the registration officers and so on, most of them are our staff, those who are doing the continuous voters registration process. And we have received just very few complaints relating to issues of misdemeanor or issues of negligence and issues of corruption. And in the few places where we have received such reports, we have investigated and we have handled it decisively, and we will continue to handle those issues decisively.
Okay, so back to a particular word that I mentioned. I want to ask, how ready is Nigeria for diaspora voting? Because it seems like prior to the 2023 elections, people in diaspora, people that made the decision, oh, I want to leave Nigeria, probably because of the economy or one reason or the other, they have been trying to engage towards the 2023 election. How ready is Nigeria for diaspora voting, and is INEC planning to impute that in the subsequent elections after 2023?
Well, the responsibility of the commission is to organize, undertake, and supervise elections. The responsibility of the commission is to obey the constitution and also the electoral act. Presently, only Nigerians who are in Nigeria and who registered in Nigeria are permitted to vote. So the law as of today does not permit diaspora voting. But we are also planning that there's a possibility that in future the country may amend the electoral legal framework and make it possible for people in diaspora to vote. But I want to also point out that sometimes when people talk about diaspora voting, they talk about those who are in the UK, they talk about those who are in the US, they talk about those in Germany and so on. Those in Chad, those in Niger, those in Cameroon, those in Togo, those in Benin Republic are all in diaspora. Those in Sudan are all in diaspora. And I can assure you that the number of Nigerians in these countries that I have mentioned is overwhelming. So when we talk about diaspora voting, let us not just reduce it to the US and UK and Germany and the other advanced countries. If you leave the shores of this country, you are in diaspora.
Okay, so that was very interesting, and I think that you've made a point of the issues that I have brought up today. So one last thing here, corruption. Oh, our great Nigeria corruption. How is INEC working towards this? But I won't ask in general, how are you trying to fight corruption in 2023 election? I will pinpoint to one thing, which is the selling of party mandate. Now, there are speculations that INEC participates in these corrupt practices. How are you moving towards cancelling that idea from the minds of Nigerians?
Well, I think that it is important for us to understand the electoral process and its dynamics. Basically and fundamentally, the responsibility of organizing party primaries rests with the various political parties. It does not rest with the Independent National Electoral Commission. A political party is supposed to be an amalgam of people who share some basic principles, who share some basic ideologies, and who have decided to come together to pursue a common goal, which is power. Now, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has made it mandatory that people have freedom of expression, and people have freedom of association, and also have freedom of movement. So it is not within the province of the Independent National Electoral Commission to make a decision for people which political party to belong to and which political party not to belong to, and when to leave a political party and when not to leave a political party. That is one. Secondly, if you look at the Electoral Act, it defines an aspirant as somebody who aspires to a particular goal, and defines a candidate as somebody who has won the nomination of his political party. Yeah. So they only come within the purview and ambit of the commission when they have won the primaries of their political party, and their list and personal particulars are now submitted to the commission pursuant to section 29 subsection 1 of the Electoral Act. So if within the period people move from one political party to the other, the commission has nothing to do with it. But it is possible that in future, the country may find a mechanism of saying, wait a minute, the moment the commission announces a general election, which is 3 days to the election itself, no individual can move from one political party to the other. For me, I think that may make for some level of stability, and also make it impossible for people to wait, for people to defect or decamp from one political party to the other, so that they can harvest the decampees and they become their candidates. So it doesn't make for ideological certainty. It doesn't also show us as a country that is serious about principles, that is serious about ideology. In some countries, a father is a member of the Labour Party. The son grows up into the Labour Party. The grandson grows up into a Labour Party. It becomes more or less like a Labour Party family because they share some basic principles and some basic ideology. But if people belong to one party today, in 2 weeks they move to another party, the next 2 weeks they move to a different political party, it doesn't show us as a country that takes party politics seriously. It shows us as a country that uses political parties only as a vehicle.
All right, so yes. What you're trying to say in summary is that INEC doesn't have hand in the selling of party mandates. At that point in time, those people who are engaged in that type of thing have not come within the purview and ambit of the responsibility of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. I'm going to add Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Festus Okoye, for joining us today in the studio. And we've heard from the doctor himself. And if you have any other question, you can send it in. And we hope to have you some other day.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Thank you.